What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the Browns Beat podcast. I'm not laughing out of joy, I'm laughing out of pain. The Dallas Cowboys beat the Cleveland Browns 33-17. We're here immediately after the game to do a reaction for you. Joining us today, very thankful to have him on, Mr. Jeffrey Santa from the Cleveland Pulse. Good to have you on, sir.
Yep.
But before we get into discussion here, I wanted to just read some key details and read some important facts and stats about this game. So let's just start off. Deshaun Watson was 24 of 45, 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions, had a fumble. Deshaun was pressured 23 times today. Our leading receivers were David Njoku and Jordan Atkins. So if that tells you how this game went, the Browns were 2 of 15 on third down all day, 3 of 5 on fourth down, and we had 11 penalties for 64 yards. Yeah, this game sucked. This game was terrible. With that being said, this is going to be a get it off your chest. Let's get it out there and try to keep pushing forward kind of a reaction here. Yeah. Tristan, I'll let you take it from now.
There's going to be a theme to this episode for me. Quite frankly, there's one word that can just describe the whole shit show that we just had to endure. And that word is unprepared. Unprepared. We were unprepared in every single facet of this football game. We got dominated at the line of scrimmage, both sides of it, right? I don't care how this defense looked in the second half. The first half, they were bullied. The offensive line, I don't even want to talk about it right now. Derek,
Yeah.
You know when we were reacting to week 2 of the preseason, I said, get a left tackle in. They didn't get a left tackle in. They brought in Jermaine Ifedi. After week 3, I said, get a left tackle in because I'm going to lose my mind if we cannot deal with Micah Parsons and the Cowboys pass rush. And it was such a preventable thing. There were people available that we could go out to get, whether it be David Bakhtiari, Charles Leno, and there were certainly some others that had experience at left tackle. We didn't do it. Jack Conklin wasn't ready. Jedrick Wills wasn't ready. And yet, I'll dive into it deeper because I'm just going to go ranting on that one individual thing. I want to keep it surface level for right now. So many communication errors, so many preventable mistakes if this team had been well prepared for this football game. And that's the thing that just kills me. This is a team that has the talent to absolutely whoop a Dallas Cowboys team. Absolutely. I mean, the thing that frustrates me the most, Derek, is I look at this game and I say, if we would have came in better prepared, right? If we would have done what the Kansas City Chiefs had done in the preseason, actually play your starters in 2 of the preseason games, work out those kinks beforehand, you wouldn't have went into halftime with the game practically already over. That's where my frustration is with this football game. Because in the second half, even our defensive starters, they finally adjusted. They did a lot better, but the game was too far gone. The offense couldn't do anything. This was such a mismanaged game from our coaching staff, and it's an utter failure. There's no other way to say it. It's a complete failure from the coaching staff and from the front office, to be honest with you. I'm really upset about this one. I'm going to leave it at there. We'll obviously go more into depth a little bit later, but I've got to cut it off there or else I'm just going to keep on going.
All right, Jeff, your turn. Opening statements.
Okay, so for a quick opening statement, I want to play a fun little thought game with you, Derek.
Oh, boy.
We recorded with you Thursday.
Mm-hmm.
Take yourself back to Thursday, Derek. Wipe this game from your memory. Just take it out if you can. Think about us on Thursday.
Got it.
If I would have told you on Thursday, and this is just the game of football is just amazing like this.
Mm-hmm.
If I would have told you, Derek, on Thursday, Sunday, the 425 slot, Dak Prescott is going to throw for 179 yards
Yeah.
and 1 touchdown. Let's just say I said that.
Mm-hmm.
Let's just say the leading rusher for Dallas was going to be Zeke. He's only going to have 40 yards. He's going to have a touchdown, but he's going to have 40 yards. Let me tell you, like I said, if it was Thursday and I said CD Lamb, he's going to have 61 yards. Good game, nothing nuclear, not a touchdown, nothing like that. 180 yards for Dak, 40 rushing yards for Zeke, 61 yards for CD Lamb. And past 3-0, we never had a chance in this football game. Mm-hmm. It's amazing how bad we played today because they didn't play that good. And I understand. Did they have to air the ball out? Did they have drives where they looked really, the ball was moving well? Our defense played surprisingly well for a team that gave up 33 points. They were the most prepared unit out of everybody. The special teams unit wasn't prepared. I love that statement, being unprepared. The coaching staff wasn't ready. The offensive line wasn't ready for the adjustments. We weren't ready for different kickoffs and stuff of that nature. And yeah, it's just like how much worse can you beat yourself in a home opener? And that's saying a lot for the Cleveland Browns franchise since 1999.
Jeff, so remember, I want to take you back to Thursday now. Okay. I want to take you back to Thursday. And remember when we had the discussion about the new kickoff rule and how that was going to go for the Cleveland Browns. And what did I say, Jeff? I said if there's any team that's going to affect, it's going to be us. And sure enough, lo and behold, it just...
And believe it or not, our kick returner was one of our one of our 2 best players the whole game.
Exactly. Honestly, I was going to come in and say the exact same thing. Really, the only player today that I can point to and say he did his job, he came in prepared, was Jalen Darden. He was great on the returns. Arguably the best returning we've seen in years. That's what it was today. He was great. He was fantastic. He got us the first 3 points on the board with his punt return. But guess what? It was such destruction all around it that it didn't even matter. It's so disappointing.
All right. So what I want to do here is, again, this is a therapy session. I would like to address the elephant in the room to start things off. Let's talk about it. Let's get it done and over with.
Which one?
Yeah, well, the $230 million elephant, which, by the way, thank you to Dallas. I know this game went terrible, but thank you to Dallas that Deshaun is no longer the highest paid as far as guaranteed money in the NFL at $231 million now. Let's just kick this off. And, I understand there's a lot that you can say about this game with Deshaun Watson. Stats first, again, 24 of 45, which is absurd. 169 yards, 1 touchdown, 2 interceptions. He had 1 fumble. Again, he was pressured 23 times. Let me just say this. Because for me, my biggest thing is consistency. And this is why I have such a big problem with a huge portion of this fan base right now. It is utter bullshit how Deshaun Watson is being catered to and excuses being made for. And listen, I understand he's had a tough week. I get it. I understand that is a real life off the field situation that's tough to deal with. But I'm talking strictly on the field right now. This has to end of making excuses. I mean, Tristan, me and you have talked about it countless times on this podcast. There are no excuses to be made anymore. Deshaun Watson has played 12 games. This was his 13th game as a Cleveland Brown. In all 13 games, other than maybe 2 or 3, he has sucked. Just flat out sucked. And I understand that the Browns didn't have much of a run game today. Jerome Ford, 12 carries, 44 yards. The touchdown at the end, I don't even really count. That was garbage time, whatever. I understand that. I understand we didn't have much help in the run game. I understand the offensive line was terrible. But I'm old enough to remember when Deshaun Watson was on the Houston Texans playing with terrible offensive lines and still was able to produce. I understand that this was not a perfect situation, and there's so much that you can point to and you can blame, and you can make excuses for Deshaun Watson. I'm not doing them. I'm not making excuses. We are allowed to be critical of Deshaun Watson. We are. And anybody trying to tell you that you're not is absurd. I was critical of Baker Mayfield when he sucked. I defended him as long as I could. And then I, started being more realistic about the situation. And I understand, yeah, that's a cherry on top. Look at the game Baker had today. The Steelers were the only team in the North to win this first week. It's just a shit show here in Cleveland right now. But on Deshaun Watson, stop acting as if he can do no wrong. And I'm not talking to you two. I'm not talking to everybody who's going to watch this. But the people who, you know who you are, stop acting like Deshaun Watson can do no wrong. Yeah, it wasn't perfect for him today, but he also sucked. There was one drive the entire game that I can point to and say, you know what? I like that. I like what I saw. And outside of that, he was underthrowing guys all day long. He was bailing out of clean pockets when he had them, which I understand he didn't most of the game. But when he did, he was bailing, which is something that we sat here and we bitched about with Baker for the longest time. That's going to continue. I don't care that it's a different quarterback. Like, we have to be real and treat it the same way. And listen, I know we'll talk about it later on. I know it's only week 1. But boy, oh boy, if this doesn't get significantly better, this is going to be interesting. It's going to be an interesting season how this all shakes out. I could yell about this all day long. I'm very pissed off. But moving on to you, sir, Tristan. Deshaun Watson, and then Jeff, you're after Tristan. But Deshaun, what did you take away from today?
Just again, that single word, unprepared. Here's the thing, right? Here's what I'll say the silver lining for Deshaun was, right? I actually liked that at the very beginning of the game, he was playing within the structure of the offense. He was taking his checkdowns. He was making quicker decisions with the football. But as the game wore on, he kept on forcing plays. And that was what killed him last year. And it was just so disappointing because, again, like, do I think that the game plan he had set him up for success? Absolutely not. We were outcoached 100% in this game. That definitely had an effect on Deshaun, but he has to be better. He has to be able to play through that adversity. Like, we talk all the time about how Lamar Jackson, Joe Burrow, the quarterbacks in this division, they're able to fight through that type of adversity. Patrick Mahomes especially, even though he has Andy Reid, who's a fantastic coach, he doesn't have to do it often. But, those players are special players that they're able to fight through that type of adversity. And Deshaun just couldn't today. He just wasn't good enough. I mean, he was late on his reads. He would hold on to the ball for too long. He was forcing balls into windows that just were not there. It was such a deviation from the very beginning of the game where I actually liked what he was doing. And then it just got so bad so fast. You could tell he just got desperate, and it was terrible. We were talking a little bit before we started recording. I was trying to find the accurate yards per pass. ESPN had 3.8 yards per pass for him. Yahoo Sports had 2.7. I don't know which one to believe, but either way,
Terrible.
That's god awful. You threw for less yards per pass than Zeke Elliott had in this game running the football.
Oh my
yards
gosh.
per rush. That's how terrible we were in the air today. Absolutely abysmal. He got sacked 6 times. Certainly, there's a lot of it you can point to the offensive line. A lot of it you can point to him just holding onto the ball for way too long. I thought on 2 of the 4th downs that we turned the ball over on downs, I thought that he had guys that he could have hit open if he kept his eyes downfield, but instead he's running towards the sideline, focusing on just what's in front of him. It's worrying. It's worrying. What I will say is at least he threw the ball a lot today. So hopefully he figured something out, or there's at least enough on film that they're able to sit through, and by the time Jacksonville comes down, there's a clearer, more effective game plan, because the game plan today just was not good at all. It's just so it's so heartbreaking, especially when it comes to this guy, because we moved off of Baker Mayfield because we didn't want somebody who was going to lose us football games. Baker Mayfield, his time here towards the end, he was losing us football games. He was turning the ball over too much. And what do we have now? We've got a guy who threw 2 interceptions, one of them not his fault, right? Went right through Elijah Moore's hands, should have caught it, whatever. He still fumbled the football. Joel Bitonio got on it, but he still fumbled the football.
Which by the way,
we're gonna go forward with this.
Before I forget,
I'm done with that, CA. I'll let you go.
No, I was gonna say what you just said. When Bitonio jumped on the fumble, did you see the clip afterwards?
Yes.
Deshaun went over to help him up, and Joel slapped his hand away.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot of startling clips coming out after this game where it just seems like what's bothersome to me, and I feel like the Watson situation is primary to this, is that like this looked like to me, if you would have took Dallas out of this and I just could only watch the Browns, just only the Browns players out there, it would have looked like to me we were like in week 9 on a short week on a Thursday night game, and we were playing a team that was clearly like we were playing Kansas City. This is week 1 of a new season where you had all off season to figure out what you were going to do. And this is what's always bothered me with the Stefanski regime, and probably the primary concern and just the biggest worry from year in and year out is like, how does the whole like the whole organization like not really know what's going on? Like you see like live interviews with Jack Conklin at his locker all week, like, oh yeah, it's going to be an uphill battle. You have to switch your body, like what's going on in your mind, to the other side. Suddenly inactive. Like I knew it wasn't going to be a surefire thing he was going to play, but it's like your week actually went from Jed maybe playing, maybe small percent chance, to all right, Jed's not playing, Conklin's playing, upgrade, love it, cool. And then it's like Conklin's inactive, and now you have James Hudson over there, which is a disaster area. But Watson and Stefanski just, they can't. What startles me is that I just am not sure if they have a great relationship. I don't know how they could come out here and collectively. Who's in these backdoor rooms making decisions? Is it Dorsey, Stefanski, Watson? Is it Dorsey and Stefanski? Is it Stefanski and Watson? Like, what is the thought process of, all right, we're going up against a premier pass rusher, top 3 or 4 in the league. We come out with a training wheels offense that just doesn't even look. What was intimidating? What did the Dallas Cowboys have to scheme against after our first 2 or 3 drives? A David Njoku 1-yard flare, like catch the ball and hope that he just magically sprouts a 4.40 time. Like, I get he's a good athlete. He ain't that good of an athlete. He's a great athlete, but he's not like. Everything from the play calling to the offensive scheme to how are you going to block Micah Parsons to can you line up correctly on the offensive line? Can you make sure your tackles are on the right positions so you don't get an illegal formation, to how long is Watson going to hold the ball? When he's holding the ball, there's nobody open. When people are open, he's getting crushed. It just seemed like we got ran circles around all day, and just not by a good coaching staff. Mike McCarthy, no. I get Mike Zimmer in that role. They might be a really good defense all year long. I think that was an underrated kind of shifting behind the scenes for them that could really pay dividends for them, because that defense did look startlingly quick everywhere. But it's like, Mike McCarthy, man, we got a 2-time Coach of the Year award winner. Like, you have to be a lot better than that. Everybody played like a rookie today. That's all I have to say.
Yeah, and that's a good way to put it. I mean, everybody on this team, I can't really. There's no bright spot. offensively. I can't really look at anybody and say you had a game where I was excited or even had any positivity. The only one that I can really say, which is kind of a shit show to even say that, is Jerry Jeudy. And that was only because the one drive I thought he had a couple routes that he ran that were just crisp. He caught the ball, one of them being the touchdown catch. But outside of that, I mean, terrible. But I want to take it to the game plan and talk more in depth about preparation and some of the stuff you were talking about, Tristan. When it comes to pre-game and getting ready for this game, Jeff, you mentioned it. Jack Conklin was supposed to play. He was supposed to be the left tackle, or at least that's my understanding by everything that we were told. And like you mentioned, obviously we get here, James Hudson is out there. As soon as I saw that, I was like, oh boy, this is going to be a long game. But
And it's just like, when did that arise to like our leadership is my secondary question.
Yeah. It makes no sense how you can go from, and maybe internally they knew, maybe it was just scare Dallas kind of thing of like, hey, Jack Conklin's going to be out there. But from a game plan standpoint, we quite literally have had how many months to know that we were playing Dallas week 1? And you already know the injuries that you have. You know you're not going to have Nick Chubb. You know you're not going to have, your offensive line, your tackle position is a question. But why? Why in the world, things were kind of structured the way they were was beyond me. I mean, I did not expect the Browns to have a run game. Tristan, we've talked about it. I don't like Jerome Ford. The man can't see a hole to save his life. Correct me if I'm wrong. No Deontay Foreman today at all. I don't know if he's still injured or what. But as far as a game plan standpoint, I thought this was a piss poor job. I thought that they did not compensate for the obvious issues. I mean, we talked about it how many times. Chip Micah Parsons. Find a way to keep him from being a game wrecker, right? And Tristan, we talk about this all the time. You bring it up the most. The Bengals, right? When we play the Bengals, they don't game plan for Myles Garrett. They don't do anything different to try to slow down Myles Garrett. That's what we were today. We let Micah Parsons line up on either side of the defensive line, including in the middle. It looked like Myles Garrett against, I want to say it was Tennessee when he was doing that. Pitiful. Absolutely pitiful. And I guess we can tie both into one here with the offensive line. I didn't think anybody played well. DeWand early on was the only one. There was a couple reps where he was one-on-one with Micah where I was like, okay, like he held his own there for a minute. And then it just fell apart.
Yeah, and I mean, DeWand, I'll give him that. He had a couple reps against Micah where he was really great. And then he took too many penalties. Like he took, I think it was like 2 or 3 penalties. Just a ridiculous amount of penalties. And we'll get into that as well with coaching when we talk more about that. But this O-line, I want to read you these stats. So the 6 sacks, of course, 17 quarterback hits, 17, 6 tackles for loss. Now, the tackles for loss, you can absolutely, and the quarterback hits to an extent, you can blame on the running back and the quarterback. That Dallas Cowboys interior is not good. It's not good. They were one of the worst run defense teams in the league last year. Without looking anybody up, can you name one of their starting 2 defensive tackles for today?
Nope.
Mozzie
Absolutely
Smith?
not.
Was he starting?
Congratulations. I don't know. I don't even know if he was. But like I saw those names on the screen. I was like, who? And they dogged us. They came into our building in the line of scrimmage. They dominated.
Criminal.
It was embarrassing. Absolutely embarrassing. That O-line, I thought that, losing Bill Callahan, we'd have some potential issues. I didn't think it would be this bad. Like, oh my goodness. Like, and I told you, Derek, and I'm coming back to this. I know I already talked about it earlier. I told you I was going to lose my goddamn mind if Micah Parsons went crazy this game. and we didn't have somebody brought into the building that's a left tackle. James Hudson, bless his heart, he's not a left tackle. He's not a left tackle. Jermaine Ifedi, not a left tackle. And you refuse to play DeJuan Jones out there, right? Which, you know what, to a certain extent, I can understand. Let the rookie get his bearings at right, then look to transition. But you didn't have a single left tackle. Even if Jack Conklin was healthy, you didn't have a left tackle. That's ridiculous. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's unacceptable.
And what are you doing this whole week, like leading up to it? Like, oh, like it's just like like Barry, and I've been a Barry fan since he was brought in. I've been a Stefanski fan since he was brought in. I said, let's move on from Baker. Those are all my stances there as far as the big picture of this organization. Derek will tell you the same thing. Mm-hmm. Here's like what it's like. It's just becoming a magician show. Like, oh, we restructured Deshaun. For what? You didn't even do anything with the money. Oh, we waived David Bell. Wow, that's a wow. Oh, is this a narrative creating machine or is this a football game winning team? I'm getting a huge disconnect here. Like, are we portraying a competent persona? Like, yes, we've been in 2 playoffs games and we've won one in the past 4 years with this regime. Totally understand. Not going to throw away all that credit because they deserve credit for that. Obviously, the consistency and the extensions and the bringing people back into the fold and acquiring other pieces of talent. Never going to talk bad on that because those are actually positives for the city, positives for the team. But great point, Tristan. What are you doing this whole week? Oh, there's so much competition in our wide receiver room. We have to waive David Bell. Where? Didn't see any of it. Tell me David Bell is any worse than Cedric Tillman and
Cedric Tillman all off season. Guess what? What did that amount to? One reception, 3 yards.
Yeah, that was DPJ last year. He was gone by the deadline. Like, we're always on this like this machine narrative. Like, oh wow, we have, and I want to believe it too. I fall into that camp. Wow, we have all these offensive weapons. Like, what are defenses, what are secondaries going to do when they got to put their best on Amari Cooper and we have Jerry Jeudy on the other side? Nothing. And if you can't throw the football downfield, and if you don't actually run plays to throw the football down the field, they don't have to cover anyone. They could send everyone to the house, flush Watson out this way, flush him out that way, make him do some stupid shit running toward the boundary and go on with their life. They had Micah Parsons run around like it was Pop Warner, like it was Little League, like we were like in 5th and 6th grade. Can
we throw downfield? Real question. Can we?
With that game plan and quarterback performance combination.
Like, whenever he did go downfield, it was like 5 yards out of bounds. Yeah. Like he could not throw the football downfield today. And I mean, honestly, throughout his whole time in Cleveland, he has not really thrown any deep passes at all. And it's such a concern. Something I do want to point out there, because you did talk about it as well, Jerome Ford. So we finished the game 4.9 yards per rush. Jerome Ford had 3.7. 3.7 yards a carry. And, I talked about it with left tackle. What was our plan for running back? Yeah. Really? Jerome Ford and Pierre Strong? That was your game plan? That was your game plan?
Especially, actually, somebody was just literally in my Twitter mentions, just brought this up, especially with Stefanski.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I like Stefanski. He's never excelled when the offense has had to be pass first oriented consistently. He's never shown us that. He's always had a Chubb. He's always had Hunt. He's always had Hunt. He's always had Chubb.
Oh man, I was about to say pause.
It's a therapy session. We'll clip that. We'll put that on X.
There you go.
And he's always had these jumbo packages. He's always had, let's get the ball to Harrison Bryant and company. And if Njoku's hurt with no running backs moving forward, Tristan, it could be ugly.
And I'll actually combat you on relying on the pass game to one time, and it was with Joe Flacco. It was with a 37-year-old Joe Flacco that you saw us, because we had to rely on the pass. We did it. We still turned the ball over way too much. But
the Flacco was like house money. Like you have to, like, you can't. I feel like Stefanski back up against the wall. Like, all right, we're gonna do whatever we want. That's his best. Like, he's good after losses. He's good out of bye weeks, and he's good with backup quarterbacks, because it's like your expectations are here. This is all Cleveland teams, by the way.
Yeah.
If anybody out there watch, if you're a fan of the other sports team, when your expectations are here everybody seems to shrink. When you're here and Joe Flacco is playing and it's like, Chubb is hurt. We're on our fourth quarterback of the season. DTR is hurt. PJ Walker's no good. It's like, wow, our play exceeds the expectations massively until the expectations come back up here.
Well, and the crazy thing I'd say is, like, I think you could argue that the stretch that Jacoby Brissett had as a quarterback here was better than anything Deshaun Watson's given us.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's the thing that hurts the most, is like Kevin, for some odd reason, whether it's him, whether it's the guy who's actually holding the ball in his hand, like, he does better with more restricted quarterbacks. Like, it's the craziest thing. Like, Jacoby Brissett's nowhere near as talented as Deshaun Watson. Not even close. And we would kill for that production.
Yeah.
We would kill for
Jacoby,
it.
who beat the Cincinnati Bengals right now with nothing at receiver.
Exactly. Like, it's so concerning. And listen, it doesn't help, and I do want to talk about this as well. Too many drops today from the receivers and tight ends. Way too many. David Njoku had one where if he would have just snagged it, before he got hurt, if he would have just brought it in, there was nobody within 5 yards of him. He could have, just like the Jets game last year. I saw it in my head as he dropped that ball. I saw the slant. I saw the ball going right into his hands, and I saw him taking off like 30 yards down the field. It was there for him, and he didn't take it because he dropped the football, which again comes down to we were unprepared. That's something that, if that happens in the preseason, oh, hey, let's tweak this and this, whatever you got to do. But they didn't get any reps in the preseason. That's what this comes down to. They had to figure it out on the fly, and it just didn't work. And it wasn't going to work against a good Dallas Cowboys team. This is a good football team. It's not one of the elite teams in the NFL. I think we can all agree on that. But, it's not a team that we expect to win the Super Bowl, but they're a good football team. They got a quarterback who's a solid quarterback that you know what you're going to get from him. He's consistent, unlike what we've got. And you've got a receiving threat in CD Lamb that you have to contain, which I'd argue the defense did a pretty good job of containing today. Yeah. I thought that the end arounds were, they were frustrating for me because he was having a lot of success with those end arounds, and it was really annoying. But you know what? Outside of that, I thought we did well against him today. It's such an epic coaching failure on the offensive side of the football that, like, the defense I don't even think had a perfect game. Especially early on. I thought that line was just not good enough. But they made their adjustments and they improved, and they actually gave the offense a fighting chance. But we just kept on tripping over our own feet on offense, and it was just so frustrating. So I'm ready to move on to the defense. But if you guys want to do some final thoughts on the offense, absolutely. Let's do
so that. I want to point out there was a moment in this game where Tom Brady on the call, which is a whole nother conversation, but Tom Brady on the call, talking about the Browns offense, and he had made the statement of, I just want to see some fight. I want to see this team come out and have some fight and not lay down, which I kind of felt the same exact way. That's kind of how I felt. Okay, you've gone out, you've gotten your ass kicked, at least show some fight. Like, at least to the very end, go out there and do the very best you can. And there was a moment, we talked about the drive, right? The good drive, the best drive that Deshaun had, the best drive that Jerry Jeudy had. There was a moment after the Browns go down and score there where you look at the scoreboard and it's like, okay, if a couple things go right, the Browns can swing momentum and maybe get back in this game. What happens? We go back out there, stop them on defense, get the ball back, nothing. Go back out on defense, stop them. Come back, nothing. And then the defense finally broke. They gave up a field goal. And my thought process in that was like, listen, you had a sliver of opportunity. I'm not saying the Browns would have come back. I'm not saying the Browns would have won. Certainly not saying that. But what I'm saying is they had the opportunity there a couple of different times to really go out, make a statement, fight, go down. I don't even care if it's a field goal. Go down and just fight. I did not see any fight out of this team today. I saw no fight out of this team. I saw no urgency out of this team. I saw no will out of this team. And that's what pisses me off the most, is this is a team that we have talked about for years, that fought, that went out there and found ways to move the ball, and for some reason, this team, and I talk about this all the time with Ohio State, and I'm going to use this comparison here because I feel like it fits. Tristan, when we talked about Ohio State last year, the one thing that I would always say is like, this is not the team I know. This is not the team I know that goes out there and just lays it to you and makes you feel them. Pause. And this year with Ohio State, it's the opposite. Like, I feel like that's back, right? Where the last couple of seasons I've been like, this ain't the team I know. I don't know who this team is, but this ain't the program. This ain't the team I know. With the Browns, I'm kind of starting to feel the same way, right? Ever since probably 2020, something's changed. Now, obviously, I know we got Deshaun, whatever, but the fight, where's the fight? Jeff, you mentioned it. The fight when the expectations are low compared to, when you're being talked about because of the talent you have. It makes no sense. It makes no sense to me. It drives me crazy. And I really would love to be a fly on the wall in that offensive coaching staff and just kind of hear and figure out what their logic is behind all this stuff. What is the logic behind this game plan? What's the logic behind the roster structure of not going out and getting more depth at tackle? At minimum depth, running back. I mean, what were we thinking there? And it makes me wonder, because obviously we know those guys are smart. We've seen them do great things in the past. Do they just get in their own heads? Like, do they just overthink themselves? There's got to be there's got to be something that you can point to and figure out why we always seem to fall into this. I don't know. Jeff, you got anything? Tristan, you got anything?
My last thing before defense talk, and you're going to always play what ifs in this, especially in the NFL, but to piggyback off what you said with the fight, if they wouldn't have gave up the punt return after the Judy touchdown, it would have been 20-10, and then we got to stop. Mm-hmm. And we would have had the ball down 10. But you're always, I mean, that just, it seemed like we were a lot better in the second half, but that doesn't really say a whole lot considering how bad we were in the first half and how much was Dallas. What was Dallas's kind of identity and game plan from there on out? But it was like after the punt return, I mean, you're not going to make up that deficit with the way the offense was moving the ball. No.
I mean, well said. I mean, it's just, I can't say it enough. It was such a failure on the offensive side of the ball. So many things went wrong. So many. And I'm going to be optimistic here and say, you know what? We're going into Jacksonville. We're going to fix those mistakes. But at the same time, like, I just it's just so difficult knowing that game one of the season against a tough opponent that you knew you were going to have going into that game, you didn't even come prepared. And just, it kills me.
I have one final question for you both offensively. And a lot of people, or so far the people that I've asked, when they hear this, they think it's easily this game. But I want you to really think about it before you answer. Which opening home game was worse? This game against the Dallas Cowboys or 2019 against the Tennessee Titans?
Tie.
Yeah. I mean,
they're both bad.
You know, I'm going to say now because we're having the same exact discussions 5 years later.
Yeah.
I agree with that.
That's the exact same. That's
well put.
Yeah.
Well put.
It's like, oh my gosh, like so frustrating. But yeah, if you gentlemen are ready to move on to the defense, there's something I want to specifically talk about first because I saw a lot of people after the very first touchdown pass putting the blame on Juan Thornhill. I don't think that was Juan Thornhill's fault, that touchdown. It was cover one, and he was covering the middle of the field. He moved down because he saw the routes coming across the field. I think that was somebody else's assignment because I don't see how in cover one he's supposed to be guarding the back corner of the end zone. I feel like that was somebody else's assignment. He was pointing behind him as that was happening. I don't think that was on him. I think that he played what he was supposed to play, which was in the middle.
I don't know. I mean, in real time, it certainly looked like it was on him. It's one of those things you want to go back to the all-22 and really slow down. And I'm sure the Jake Burns of the world, will do that, and we'll look forward to that this week. But there was something I was gonna say with the secondary in particular. I thought that there was a lot of holes. I think there were some holes, and I know you don't really want to it's hard to give any positives, but I will say what you mentioned at the beginning of the show, Jeff, holding CeeDee Lamb to, what'd you say, 66 yards, something like that?
61 yards, no touchdowns.
61 yards, no touchdowns. Dak Prescott, and this is kind of the key point that I really want to make with the defensive side of the ball. Dak didn't do anything spectacular. Dak Prescott was just an efficient quarterback today. He didn't go out and
almost threw a couple interceptions to Denzel Ward.
Yeah, no, for sure. And by the way, Deshaun had a couple of interceptions that could have easily been picks. But point being, Dak Prescott was not like a game changer today, and he didn't go out and make plays and win the game for the Cowboys. He just did his job. Hit the guys he was supposed to hit. And defensively for the Browns in the secondary, I thought they did an okay job, but at some point the dam's going to break. I mean, this defense was spectacular last year, and I thought it had its moments today where it certainly looked promising, and then it had its moments where it didn't. And at the end of the day, football is a unit sport. You need this. Your offense and defense have to work together. And when the Browns can't sustain drives, can't move the ball, can't do a damn thing, how can you expect your defense to go out there and play good football? They can't. I was impressed with Dalvin Tomlinson. I'll tell you that. That was the only really good spot on the defensive line that I was like, okay, wow, he looked good. But outside of that, I mean, what are the positives?
Gents, I'm gonna make a couple points here, and then I'm gonna hop off. Appreciate you guys having me. I got a 4 a.m. wake up call starting tomorrow, but the therapy session has been great. It's honestly saved me. It's honestly kept me from doing wrong for the rest of the night. So here's my thing, Derek. I think the unit play is really important. Tristan, the Thornhill, again, everything comes back to what I think that's probably the best I've heard this game just like chalked up is just between incompetence and unprepared. That's somebody's massive fault that play happened. When you have a design blitz and nothing on the back end gets even remotely covered. That was, I think, some average Joe could have walked down to the field and made that throw. It was basically just a rainbow that made it into the end zone, and Brandon Cooks was the only person standing there.
Could Deshaun have made that throw?
Who knows?
But my point, you don't have a game wrecker anywhere. Like Micah Parsons was their game wrecker. Do they have good guys on the back end? Absolutely. But did you have a Myles Garrett, 2.5 sacks, strip sack recovered for a fumble, strip sack in the end zone? No, you didn't have that today. You didn't have any momentum swinging plays on the defensive side of the football. Not that I could think of. The first sack with Tomlinson, I didn't even know if Dak was going to get up from that. He got absolutely crushed, and then I never saw the similar pressure be put on him all game long where it seemed to work out in our favor. But I'll say this before I depart from you gentlemen. The optimistic Browns fan in me is just looking at there's 4 weeks in front of us that after 5 weeks of the season, this is the clear-cut best football team that we have played. If you look at the next 4 games, you have Jacksonville, you play the Giants, you play the Commanders, and you play somebody else. I just had it up, but I got rid of
Raiders.
The Raiders in Las Vegas. Every game's going to be difficult on the schedule, but those 5 games, then you get Philadelphia. So the big picture for me was, and I always try to stay to the big picture, even though it's frustrating, even though we want to rip our hair out as Browns fans weekly, even with wins, is that you have to win 3 of these 5 games. You just have to. The schedule is so hard at the back end with the divisional games and your Kansas Cities of the world and some other teams sprinkled in there, Miami, I believe. You have to be 3-2 minimum. 4-1 would be really nice, but you're asking a lot when after that week 1 performance. But gentlemen,
Yeah.
appreciate you having me on.
Thanks
You
for
guys,
coming on.
You guys keep kicking
for
ass
joining
over
us.
here, and we'll be tuning in. Okay.
All right.
All right, sounds good. Thank you very
Peace
much.
out,
for joining
gents.
us.
Let's hope for
Good to
better
see ya.
days.
That's right. Go Browns week 2.
Go Browns.
Oh,
So
man.
something I do want to talk about, something that Jeff kind of mentioned, was we didn't get enough pressure after that Dalvin Tomlinson hit. So something in particular that I wanted to talk about was, so I already mentioned they hit our quarterback 17 times, Derek. Do you want to know how many times we hit Dak Prescott?
Not enough. I don't know the exact number.
4 times. We
Crazy.
hit him 4 times the whole game. For this defensive line, that's just unacceptable. For the talent that's on it, for the performances that they've had last year, just not acceptable. I mean, I do want to give Mike McCarthy some credit here. They came up with a good game plan. They did. They got the ball out of Dak's hand quick. They did a lot of side-to-side runs, right? The jet sweeps I mentioned. They got us moving in one direction, then going the other, and that's what Houston did so well in that playoff game. I guess the hard part about it is before half, just not good at all. And then after half, I thought this defense really shut it down, played really good football. But at that point, you need a heroic effort from your quarterback, and you just don't get it.
Mhm.
It just, the communication mistake that we were talking about with Thornhill. Again, that's one of those where if you play your starters in preseason, there's a chance that maybe that happens in preseason when it doesn't matter, and you're able to iron it out. Just again, unprepared. I am so disappointed in this football team. This is probably the most disappointed I felt in this football team. It's definitely actually, I'll tell you exactly when we blew that game against the Jets.
Mhm.
This is the most disappointed I've been since then. Because even last year when we lost against Houston, I was upset, but at the same time, you know what? It was the Flacco run. We weren't supposed to be there. Had great coaching all the way through, and then just,
Fell apart.
slipped up.
Yep.
This is completely different. I can't believe I'm saying this, but Kevin Stefanski got taken to the woodshed by Mike McCarthy. Oh my God. And Deshaun Watson, I mean, he took so many hits today that, if he's still healthy, who knows? We might get another report that he's hurt. But if he's healthy, then at least he knows he can take a hit and not fall apart. like that's maybe the biggest takeaway for me.
Yeah. I mean, defensively, just staying on the defensive side of the ball, again, going back to the unit thing, because I don't think people realize, football, in my opinion, football is the most team-oriented sport you can have. It is the most team-oriented sport you can have, in my opinion. But, like I said, as bad as we can point to some of the moments defensively, they gave us a chance. They gave the ball back to the offense a few different times. I would argue in good field position. I if I'm remembering correctly, again, this is an immediate reaction after the game. Not good. Not good at all as far as, working as a team, working as a unit. I know we want to stay on the defensive side of the ball. I really don't have a whole lot to say defensively, to be honest with you. But I do have one thing that I wanted to bring up, Tristan, and I feel like you're probably going to agree with this. Drove me crazy that Ken Dorsey was not in the box. Drove me crazy. From at least my opinion, my standpoint, I could be totally wrong, but my football knowledge and understanding of the game, I want my offensive coordinator up in the box, seeing things from a big picture perspective. Um, and seeing him on the sideline kind of pissed me off. It kind of pissed me off. And I know Kevin Stefanski's calling the plays, right? But at the very least, I would like my offensive guy to be looking at the big picture perspective. And you simply did not have that. Drove me crazy.
I completely understand your thought process with that. What I will say is I get why Ken Dorsey was down on the field. A lot of these plays that have been installed are plays that he has likely installed. He knows the specifics of each play that is supposed to be executed. He probably was down there so that way he could talk to players in particular, make sure that the details were tightened up. And maybe later in the season he'll go up to the box. That way we have somebody in the box who has a different view of the field, to help out. I don't know. I mean, for me, it's kind of like a subjective thing. Each person is a little bit different that way. But if this team was prepared, he wouldn't need to be on the field. He wouldn't need to be on the sideline to talk about the details. So I understand from that perspective why that's frustrating because, hey, your offensive coordinator is supposed to be up in the box. Say, yeah, that makes sense. I just so much went wrong on the offensive side of the football today that it is the fact that we did have a chance to come back in that game. We did, and for a brief moment, right, I felt some momentum, and we just did not capitalize on it whatsoever. After yeah, that's just we couldn't build any momentum in this football game. And that's a killer. I thought we started off great too. The defense with the big hit with Dalvin, getting the ball back, Sean making a couple throws, and it just died. It died. You got to call these players out. I mean, just not enough, especially along the line of scrimmage, not enough effort. Just simply getting outmanned on the line of scrimmage against the offensive line that had two rookies playing positions they've never played before. Again, and I mean, I'll wrap up my thoughts on this game with this. We said before the season started, or actually, let me go back. Last year, we said that if this team was going to be successful, we would need to have it's going to come down to Kevin and it's going to come down to Deshaun. Well, Deshaun wasn't there last year. Kevin stepped up, did a great job, and this year we came in. It's Deshaun, right? He's got to be the guy. This is not an optimistic first game for him. I don't even know what to say at this point. It's just so brutal. Yeah, I'll let you go from here because I'm just going to keep on rambling at this point because my mind is just, it feels like it's in a knot at this point.
Yeah.
Just so much, just so many, just so much went wrong. And there's so many people to blame.
Mm-hmm.
There's so many people to blame, but I'll cut it off there, Derek. Any final thoughts on this game?
Well, I don't really, I mean, final thoughts on this game, yes, but kind of looking at the big picture, what you just talked about with Kevin, with Deshaun, we knew that the defense was going to be the backbone, and I still feel the same way. I still think, I'm still very confident in this defense being one of the best defenses in the NFL, 100%. But even though they didn't look like it today, I think a lot of it was situational. Offensively, I don't know. I don't know what the rest of the season looks like because, we've seen Deshaun Watson have bad games and then he's had some good games. And Tristan, my biggest thing is it's always been we need to see him on the field first to be able to judge him. And assuming that Deshaun Watson stays healthy, this is as bad as it gets. This is as bad as it gets. 169 yards, 2 picks, fumble, 24 of 45. I mean, what are we going to do with this? We're not going to do anything with this. And what frustrates me the most is this season is 100% on the back of Deshaun Watson. We don't have Nick Chubb back until week 4 minimum, which, you know, and that's assuming Chubb's going to come back and be Nick Chubb. That's an assumption in itself. But Deshaun Watson was, every throw was either overthrown, underthrown. We can't throw downfield. Yes, I know he didn't have time. Yes, I know he was scrambling. But the guy that Deshaun Watson in Houston, and one of the things that I loved about Deshaun Watson, emphasis on loved, was his ability to read the defense pre-snap and evaluate as far as where he's supposed to go with the football. I don't know how much of that's left. I don't, because he looks clueless. As soon as that ball was in his hand, he just looked flustered. Happy feet was something that I kind of got sick of hearing in the Baker era. And Tristan, today I heard that term more than ever. And I don't know. I mean, it's easy to be negative, obviously. But it's also easy to say, oh, well, the Cowboys are a good team. We got easy games coming up. But listen, the NFL is every team is good. I don't care. I don't care how bad they are. Every team is good. Every team can go play with you if you let them. And for me, Tristan, based on what we've seen today, Jacksonville took Buffalo to the wire. They should have probably beat Buffalo. The Raiders, I forget who they played, but they were in a close game. Washington, Jaden Daniels looks legit. Some of these games that we're looking at is like, oh, well, that should be an easier game. Mess around and watch. If you come out and have the same offensive performance that you did today, it ain't going to get better. It's not going to get better. And kind of wrapping up for me, that's the most unfortunate thing, is this whole season is on number 4, if he gets better or not. And if it gets to the point where they decide that he can't be the starter, then you're looking at Jameis Winston, which we saw Jameis in the preseason.
I think you go right to DTR. If it gets to a point where you know that Deshaun's just not your guy, put in DTR, because at least there's a ceiling there that is fairly high in my opinion.
This is the hill they chose to die on.
Yeah,
and this is where we're at.
Listen, and this is where I am gonna start to get a little bit more calm, level-headed. It's 1 of 17. Yeah. We do have to keep that in mind. A lot of teams, not just the Browns, are coming in unprepared, and I gotta imagine week 2 you're gonna see a much better performance. I don't expect to see as many penalties. I don't expect to see as many drops. I don't expect to see defensively the miscommunications. At least certainly not to the point that it was at in this game. But again, this is the game that you play when you refuse to play your starters in preseason. So, we're taking the L now. We're going to move on to Jacksonville. And I don't know if you want to preview the game in Jacksonville now, or if you want to come back later in the week. I don't want to talk about it right now. But listen, there's still reasons to be optimistic about this football team. Right now it feels very bleak, but the defense, especially in the second half, amazing. They really were lights out. They turned it on. Once when they got through their issues, their communication issues, they were fine. Dak Prescott didn't have an answer. Yeah, offensively, I guess the biggest bright spot is it can't get worse than this. Like, I mean, I hope to God not. I mean,
No.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. On a side note, two final things. Special teams. Oh my gosh, Dustin Hopkins,
Yep.
way to drill 51-yard field goal. That was great. And how the hell do we, again, unprepared? How the hell do we have a punt return for a touchdown? Like, it's not even the kickoff where that's new, right? And that went for a touchdown. It was a punt. Punt, Derek. A punt. We weren't ready to stop a punt.
Nope. And
I'm getting myself worked up again.
I'm gonna say this now because what you just said, hopefully it will get better, and we'll calm down. But I want to say this now in the spirit of this therapy session. My biggest concern is I don't trust the Browns. I don't trust the Browns to handle this quarterback situation correctly. I don't trust them to come to the decision of they need to move on if it is that bad. If this continues and it is that bad, I don't trust the Browns. I think they have, and I mean it, I think they've put all their eggs in this basket. I don't think that they have the balls to move on, frankly, and that concerns me. It concerns me looking really long term, looking how Deshaun Watson played today. If this continues, which it's an if, and I understand this is a way, 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 way too big of an overreaction, but I'm going to say it now so I don't say it later. If things continue, I really don't trust that they would make the decision to move on. And it kind of sucks because, Tristan, there is one bright spot. There's one. I came up with one bright spot for today. Do you know what that is?
I mean, Jalen Darden.
We have a first-round pick. We have a first-round pick.
Oh, my gosh, yes.
And if things go as horribly as they possibly could, at least we have a first-round pick. Now, there's some quarterbacks that I like, but I don't think there's a world, Tristan, at the end of this season, no matter how bad Deshaun plays, I don't think there's a world at the end of this year where we're talking about Quinn Ewers, Jalen Milroe, Carson Beck. I can't see it.
I disagree. If he's truly that
Okay.
bad, they have to have a solution, and they don't have the money to go out and sign somebody.
I hope you're right.
So I think what if it continues on this trajectory, and listen, there's a lot of football left to be played. My hope is that he turns this thing around and we're able to turn this year into a Super Bowl like run, but right now, how we feel right now, Quinn Ewers is looking mighty good. Quinn Ewers is looking real good right now. He stayed in Ohio temporarily. Let's make it permanently. That's what's in my mind right now. I'm not gonna lie. I think that they would. I mean, you can't keep on doing band-aids for an open wound, and right now that's what Deshaun Watson's looking like. So yeah, I think that they would, because also, you know what? There's no rush to start your quarterback. We could always do like a Jordan Love thing, where maybe we have Deshaun for a couple more years. Hopefully he can play average level quarterback, but we draft the replacement this year, and in 2 years we've got somebody who can be a franchise quarterback. But regardless, if this continues for the whole year, we absolutely cannot. And let me also say this: if we're out of playoff contention before the last week of the season, whatever remaining weeks are left, right, those are DTR's games. Have to be. Have to be. If that ends up going, if it ends up getting to that point, and part of me like hates having this discussion because it's way too early to have it. And there's plenty of time for Deshaun to win back our trust. But right now he doesn't have it. So it's, we feel like we can have these conversations. He's got to earn our trust first. And he's never earned our trust. The closest he got was that Baltimore game. And it felt like after that game, the trust just got ripped right out of our chests. So, I don't know what to say. He's just going to have to perform, and he's gonna have to prove that he can be that guy. Jerry Jeudy, I will say, well, minimal snaps, minimal targets that he got. He looked okay. I liked it. I think he'll work out. But
3 receptions, 25 yards, and a touchdown.
We got to get him the ball before we can figure out exactly how good he is. So,
and not to take away that good part of it, but he also dealt with an injury today. Go Browns, everybody. And, yeah. See you in the next one.
See you next time. Bye.